We're currently at Groningen Airport in the Netherlands, and I will show you how to take off, fly around the airport and land again within 15 minutes, all done automatically. So let's start with setting up our aircraft. Just move along the overhead panel. First thing we want to switch on are our landing lights. And then let's switch on these lights as well. Put the igniters on continuous and left. Then we want to switch on the fasten seatbelt sign and just really scroll down. But if you start up in X-Plane with engines running, most of the stuff is actually already set, so that's very convenient. The last little bit we want to set is our strobe lights to strobe and steady. That's it. So let's look over at the FMC. We want to clear this warning. Go to POS init. Put in Groningen Airport. Our origin is also Groningen Airport and our destination the same. Then for a flight number, just pick your favorite airline. Then let's move on to performance. I actually forgot to put in some load into the aircraft. So the payload I'll increase a little bit. It's a very handy tool by X-Plane. There we go. And then if you just press those buttons, the aircraft knows how much it weighs. Our cruise altitude is 2000 feet here because we will be staying locally. Our reserves are 3 and cost index is 30. Execute. Then let's move on to our N1 limit. We want to derate our engine to 50 degrees. And then our climb performance climb 2 as well, because we really don't need all the power of the aircraft. It's better for maintenance this way. Then let's do a flaps 5 takeoff. We want to also put in our center of gravity, so let's put in 20. And then we've got our V1, V rotate and V2, which the FMC has calculated for us. Then let's move on to the departure. We'll do the Doba 2 Delta departure today from runway 23. Activate this and then we'll get a low fuel warning, but that's because we haven't put the arrival in yet and we know we've got enough fuel with us. Then let's move on to the arrival. For the arrival we'll just do an ILS approach into runway 23. Execute. Move on to the leg space because it hasn't been connected yet. To connect, just select this waypoint and put it on top of Tobac, and then we should have a nice route to fly locally at Groningen Airport. And here we can see this is the route we've just programmed. Let's just zoom in a little bit and put this back to map view because you actually want to fly in map view. Then let's go back to the FMC, set this one where we can see our speeds. And then for the co-pilot, we want to go into the FMC and open up the leg page. Okay, up next, we want to set our flaps to flaps 5 because we told the FMC we would be taking off flaps 5. And then set our brakes to reject the takeoff, just in case we have to reject the takeoff. Then let's set our trim. You can see on the FMC that it's set to 5.25 and the trim actually is set to 5.25 as well. Then let's put in our minimums for the ILS approach we'll be doing, and for this ILS approach you can look those up in the approach chart, but for this ILS approach the minimums are 220. Struggling a little bit to dial in, but you just want 220, and then you can click again and we will put that back up when we are on the approach. Put that one to hectopascals. Then we can put the flight director for the captain on and for co-pilots. and arm auto throttle. Then for our speed, we want to set V2, which we've programmed in the FMC at 141 knots. Then let's take off the parking brake, and I think we're ready to take off. So when you take off, you want to advance your throttles to 60%, about 60%. Once it looks stabilized, you press the toga button. And there we go. The aircraft applies power for us. The aircraft starts rolling. We've got 80 knots here. Continue accelerating. Here we've got V1 and rotate. We've got positive rates, so our gear can go up. Just try and follow your flight director.
400. 1,000.
Now it's time to switch the autopilot on. So there we go. Just continue climbing. And as you can see, the auto throttle manages our speed for us. Start leveling off. Turn the flaps back to flaps 1. And then we can put the gear in the off position. And then let's put in a speed intervention at 230 knots. And let's put the flaps up completely. Nice view from the outside. Okay, all seems to be going according to plan. Let's put the brakes to off for now. Then in the FMC we want to prepare for our approach already. You can land in various flap settings, usually it's flaps 30 or 40, and for this one we will just go with a flaps 30 approach. So our VREF is 142 knots. You just want to put it into the FMC as well. I'll speed up time a little bit from time to time. There we go. Now actually we want to make sure our heading bug moves with the aircraft, just in case something fails. We've got our heading bug set. Then let's make sure we've got our proper frequency set. So for this approach, the ILS approach is 109.9. We're actually getting closer, so let's start slowing down already. 210 knots, and as you can see, the speed is acceptable for flaps up. As we're slowing down, we can select flaps 1, and with flaps 1 we can decrease our speeds to 190 knots, which again is an acceptable speed for this flap setting. Let me just fast forward a little bit again. In the turn we will select flaps 5, and then at Echo Hotel 512 we'll put the gear down and select flaps 15. Okay, let's make sure our minimums are set, so that's 220 feet again. Speed up again. I actually forgot to put the QNH into hectopascals in our standby instrument. So I just did that real quick here. But you want to do that earlier. Start our turn. And again, you want a heading bug to follow. Don't do it like me. You turn the wrong way first, but just turn it in the right direction. Let me speed up. And as we get into the turn, it's time to select flaps 5. And again, put in a speed which is acceptable for flaps 5. So here we put in 170 knots. We will put the autopilot in approach mode. Right, let me just zoom in on the range a little bit, so we've got better resolution, and at that point we will be putting the gear down and flaps 15. So we're slowly approaching that point. As you can see, the localizer is alive. Now what we want to do is put in the second autopilot, because we need 2 autopilots in order to do automatic auto lands. Move our heading bug again. Go, we're approaching the point where we want to put our gear down because the glide slope is alive. There we go. Gear down and select flaps 15. As you can see, gear down, 3 green, and we will set our speed to 155 knots, which is a good speed for flaps 15. Now the autopilot is just flying the ILS for us, and in the distance we could see the runway, so everything is going according to plan. We arm the speed brakes. I actually did that on my controller. So everything is set for an auto land. Let's move our flaps now to flaps 30, and with flaps 30 in our FMS we've got 142 knots, so we want to be 5 knots above that, so 147 knots. The runway is getting closer. Actually, I realized that I need to disconnect the autopilot once we have fully touched down, but I didn't have a button on my controller, so I'm going to be doing this manually. Normally you don't want to look inside the cockpit when you're landing, but since it's a simulator I'll make an exception this time.
100.
Okay, and just
50, 40,
let the autopilot
30, 20,
do all the work for you.
10.
As you touch down, you want to put in reverse thrust and disconnect the autopilot on the steering wheel. And now I'm realizing I actually forgot to Auto brakes, it's still set to off, so I'll just manually brake.
80 knots.
And we'll slowly come to a standstill. All right, thanks for watching. We are actually planning on writing an article on our website about this flight to explain it into even more detail. Feel free to have a look at flightsimguide.com. I'll leave a link in the description below. We also, for example, talk about the computer I'm using to run explain this smoothly, so you can have a look if you're interested. Anyways, if you like this video, feel free to like it and subscribe.